everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Monday Huddle. I am so excited that you're here. I'm Dr. Dawn Hamby, CEO and founder of Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. And for those of you who watch our other episodes, you know we love a Monday here at Shop Talk. The reason is because the Monday Huddle is a strategy I've used for years because I always thought Monday kind of got a bad rap, right? People drag into work on Monday. I believe, and we believe this at Shop Talk, that if you start to change your attitude about your Monday, it's going to change the quality of your entire week. So I hope that you're going to join our Monday revolution by being with us each and every week on Monday on your lunch hour so that you can start seeing Monday for what we think it truly should be, a fresh start and a new beginning to your week. Now, don't forget that because I want you to be able to join us on your lunch hour when you can, I'm only going to go over 3 tips with you. That way we can keep our show relatively short and you have a chance to join us on your lunch hour. So the Monday Huddle is just a small taste of what we could cover in our packages and presentations. And at Shop Talk, we specialize in online career and life coaching, resume reboots, and career confidence boot camps. We also offer a lot of corporate training and presentations for businesses and schools. I also really believe in a free consultation. A lot of career and life coaches might just offer, say, 20 minutes, but I think a 30-minute consultation is really necessary because that way we have time to visit over the phone or virtually and figure out if any of our services would be a good fit for you. So check out our website at drdawnshoptalk.com, and that's where I list all of our presentations and topics. Don't forget that those can be, by the way, customized, and everything that we used to offer in person, we now can offer virtually as well. All right, you guys, we are ready to get started with today's topic. I'm calling today's episode Passion Rediscovery. And sort of my subtitle to that is how to start living a more joyful and fulfilling life. You guys, this is such an important topic. And let me explain a little bit more what I mean about when I say passion rediscovery. All right. Have you ever met someone who's so enthusiastic and passionate that the minute you meet them, you just can't help but to feel a little inspired, right? Their enthusiasm just seems to just ooze out of their skin. And pretty soon after meeting that person, you just want to be a part of whatever it is they're doing. It also makes you very aware of your own passion IQ, right? You start to think about, well, am I that enthusiastic or passionate about things in my life? So start to ask yourself this question. How would you rate your passion today? Well, if you're like a lot of people, according to Psychology Today, don't feel bad if you've kind of lost your passion along the way. Do you know that according to that magazine, a lot of people, as they get older, they kind of forget what they used to be interested in, what used to bring them a lot of joy and passion, what made them happy. In fact, I believe that quality is really what drew me to high school teaching. You guys, I loved working with young people. And the reason is, for especially in high school, if you have, let's say, a 9th grader, right? They're just starting high school. They come into your classroom and you can see that they're still very excited about school, but they're old enough to also be aware of a lot of life's stresses. I mean, think about adolescence, right? That's stressful enough. So they're stressed out about doing well in school. They're stressed out about whether they're going to apply for college right away or if they're going to go into the workforce, and maybe a combination of both. But what I loved about that age group, you guys, is that they still were very tapped in to what their hobbies were, what their interests were. And that's something I think as we get older that we tend to forget. So I'm really excited to bring this topic to you today so that we can talk about ways that you can rediscover your passion. And I don't believe it's ever too late to rediscover what that is and to make sure you're incorporating that in your life. All right, you guys. So with the 3 tips we're going to share with you today, I believe if you put just 1 or 2 of these tips in place today, you're going to see your passion and your purpose really go. All right, you guys. At this time, I am going to introduce our co-host. Now, you guys know I absolutely love co-hosting the Monday Huddle. And one of my favorite co-hosts, of course, is the young lady who's taught me very well, because she's the one who taught me how to do this show on this online broadcast studio. We've been working together for many months, and she was actually my first co-host on the very first episode of the Monday Huddle. So I'm always so excited when she can be part of our show. So she's here in our broadcast studio, just waiting to be introduced. So with no further delay, let me introduce my dear friend, Michelle Williamson Hill, who's also the CEO and founder of Southern Inspirations. Happy Monday, Michelle, and how excited are you to be talking about rediscovering our passions, right?
Happy Monday, Dawn. And you know I'm excited because here's what I say: passion plus purpose equals inspiration. So when you are passionate about the purpose that you are walking in, you become inspired to then go be an inspiration. So I know I was one of those people you were talking about that just oozes passion.
You sure do. And for the audience members out there, if you've been watching all of our episodes, or even a handful of them, you know Michelle and I love doing the show, but a good reason we love doing it is we've been friends for years. We've had the joy of working together this year and helping our businesses grow. But that is something that we both can relate to, because, right, Michelle, we love passionate people. And that's another reason, that's a good part of your platform and your business, is tapping into that passion, right? So we're excited to talk about that today, because who doesn't want to be around passionate people? That's why I love my girl, Michelle.
But to your point, it is true. We can all have those moments in our lives where we begin to sort of lose that passion, myself included, particularly if we have a big life change or a career change like I did. None of us, I don't think, are immune to losing that. So I'm very excited to hear more about your 3 tips, and I know everyone else is as well.
All right. Well, with that being said, you guys, as I always like to say, oh, hello, Monday, we've got this, right? So if you incorporate these tips this week, you guys, I really do believe you're going to see that passion and purpose grow. So as Michelle said, we're excited to talk about these tips today. And this first one, I think, is so important. Okay. I think Michelle's going to agree with me on this. When I mentioned why I was drawn to high school education, it really had to do with sort of that childlike enthusiasm, right, that you see young people have. And then as we get older, it is easy to kind of lose that way. So when I talk about tip number 1, awaken the child within. All right, you guys, let me talk a little bit more about what I mean about that. What I want you to do is to really go back in time. Really think about what made you excited when you were young. A lot of researchers say it's important to think back in blocks of time. So if you can go back to, say, when you were 6, 7, 8 years old, and start thinking about those blocks of time. So they suggest like 8 to 14, say 14 to 20 or 21. 21 to, say, 31, or if you're a little older like I am, then maybe just think back on the past 10 to 15 years, right? That kind of thing. If you do, it's going to help you remember what you were passionate about back then, and it's going to remind you of what your interests and hobbies are. So in the next tip, we're going to look at really incorporating those, but right, the first thing is to always kind of go back, awaken that child within you, and think about what truly brings you joy and what makes you happy. So what do you think about that first tip, Michelle?
I love that. You know, there's such an innocence as a child. There's just an innocence there before you realize the things that strip your passion. And so as a child, you're just enjoying. And so I think it's such a good reminder just to think about those things that do bring us joy, because those lead to our passions. So I love that tip. Good one to start with.
And I think another, to your point, Michelle, you know, when we think back, I think another lesson to be learned from children is you see how excited and enthusiastic they are. Nothing stands in their way. They haven't learned to be critical of themselves yet. And that's a good reason why I just loved my career in teaching, especially with high school, because I loved seeing them try to be an adult, but still kind of keep that childlike enthusiasm. So that's one thing, you guys, the research really does say that you need to really tap into what brings you joy and just kind of quiet that critical mind, right? When a child is painting, when a child is singing, If they're trying to play a particular sport for the first time, right? They just go ahead and do it. They don't worry about whether they're great at it or not. Like if people were to ask me, do you paint? Do you sing? Do you do this? I would say, yes, I do. Now, you didn't ask me if I do it well, but I can do it. And that's the way, that's right, Michelle. That's the way children are. They'll paint that picture. It doesn't matter if it's never going to end up in a gallery. They'll sing with that choir. It doesn't matter if they're ever good enough to get the solo, right? That's what I want our audience to think about. Just think about what you enjoy. And of course, typically, what you're good at, you do tend to love a little bit more, right? Because you're a little bit more confident.
Right.
But you've got to put that critic aside and really awaken that child within. So we thought that would be a great first tip. Okay, you guys, we're going to move on to tip number 2. This one's a little different. We're calling this one, go on a passion quest. All right, let me explain what I mean about that as well. All right, when we think about a quest, right, we're thinking about a journey, we're thinking about a destination, we're thinking about discovery. So now that you've identified, because remember in tip number 1, you just got to go back and start remembering what it is that truly brings you happy, makes you happy, right? So now that you've got those identified, now you're going to want to go back through and you're going to really start to think about, out of those things, which bring you the most joy. And if you have followed tip number 1 and you're not worried so much about whether you can do things well, then really think about what makes you happy and then start carving out that time. Now, Michelle knows I'm a big believer in not saying that we don't have the time, right? Because we all have the same 24 hours a day. We all have 168 hours a week. So think of it in weekly blocks. Don't try to squeeze in everything in a day or two. Think about that entire week, and then, you guys, there's no reason why you can't start fitting in those activities that really bring you joy. Start fitting it into your schedule. Make time for that. If you do, you're going to find that sort of inner fulfillment. That's why that subtitle in today's episode was to really discover not only your passion, rediscover it, but to start living a more joyful and fulfilling life. Because if you don't do anything that makes you passionate outside of perhaps work and your family, if you don't have some things just for you that you're making time for, right, Michelle, you'll find yourself just kind of spreading things out too thin, and you won't feel very happy or fulfilled. You won't have that inner joy. So what do you think about that second tip?
Oh, that's also a good one. I mean, just kind of going on that self journey, if you will, just to kind of look, you call it a quest, just let's look at what are those passions and make time for those professionally as well as personally. It's so very important.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because if you don't take those steps, then, you're just always going to be seeking. And you find that in the research that when people don't make the time for the things that really make them happy, they really start to build up a lot of unhealthy behaviors, right, Michelle? They start taking out their resentment, maybe on coworkers and maybe on their children or their husband. And then if they really looked within, they're kind of like realizing, oh, wait a minute. They didn't ask me to do this. I took that upon myself. They didn't criticize me over here. I heard it differently, right? So as a result, you can kind of turn things around on that quest and really start tapping into that inner joy, which is not going to just make you happy, but if you are taking it out on anybody,
Yes, absolutely. They will thank you for it.
They absolutely will. Exactly. All right, you guys, usually around this time in our episode, I always reach out to our audience members and remind them to make sure that you share this episode. If you think this could benefit someone, definitely give us a thumbs up if you like the content or give us some comments. And Michelle and I both, whenever we're on the episode together, we're always trying to kind of make sure that we respond to those comments because it really helps us determine if this is a topic that our audience would want to see and if it's a topic that's important. So be sure to like the video, share that content, give us some comments. We always love that. And whenever I get a chance, right, Michelle, I try to give an on-air shout out as well. So love doing that. All right, you guys, we're going to move on to tip number 3. I love this question. And the question literally is, I'm getting paid for this? All right, you guys, let me kind of explain a little bit more what I mean about that. All right. When I say that, you guys, what I'm saying is if you've never asked yourself this question, especially let's take a look at your job. If you've never had those moments at your job where you've literally said, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid for this, then you're really either not in the career that's truly making you happy, or you somehow have lost the joy in that job. So by following these kinds of tips, you guys, you can kind of reinvent that for yourself. In fact, in next week's episode, I'll be talking about work ethic and how much joy you can get out of that and kind of creating your dream job, even if you're not there yet. So if you've not asked yourself this question, guys, there's ways that you can tap into those passions. So I don't believe that I'm any luckier than anybody else just because I've had those moments both professionally and personally. I think the difference is that I've really taken the time to think about what brings me joy, and I've made sure that both in my career and in my personal life, that I've utilized those talents, right? Now, sometimes it can be a little scary, right? Like, for example, I know I'm the kind of person who would just be miserable at the kind of job where I would never get to interact with people. Like, as much as I love data, as much as I love research and crunching the numbers, you guys, I would just wither up and die. Michelle knows this. She and I are very similar that way. We love people. We love helping people. So I just would be miserable in that kind of job. So if you have never asked yourself that question on the job, or even in your personal life, if you've never said, oh man, I would just do this all the time if I could, type of thing, then you have probably lost either your passion along the way, or you need to pivot and you need to start thinking about bringing that passion back by either taking some new risks in your career or in your personal life. Right, Michelle? What are your thoughts about tip number 3?
Absolutely. When you're doing something that you really, really enjoy, it begins not to really feel like work. And that's what causes you to say, am I really getting paid for this? So by chasing your passion and living in that and choosing a career that falls within that, you're setting yourself up beautifully to not have the dreaded, oh, I have to go to work again. It really does facilitate joy.
It really does, you guys. And that's why in my own career and even with my own staff, they tease me. They really do when I come in and I'm like, happy Monday. And it is not just because I'm a little cheesy. I think we all can recognize it's probably a little true. But it's really because, you guys, if I had not chosen a career that I loved, okay, and I've had the privilege of working for the state of Arkansas for now almost 30 years in education and training. And if I didn't pick something I really loved, I definitely could not get to the office with that kind of attitude. So really think about that, you guys. If you really think it's your career that is not aligned with your passions, and again, in next week's episode, we'll be talking a little bit about work ethic. But more than that, whether it's professional or personal, you need to take a look at what really brings you joy. And remember this as well. To paraphrase what Michelle was saying, right, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But a second part of that is also to remember you're the only one that really can determine that for yourself, right? Michelle and I have been friends for years, as I've mentioned. We've talked about our hopes and dreams. And here's the key. Nobody, even your husband, your children, your parents, nobody can really identify that for yourself. Right, Michelle? We've seen colleagues of ours and friends of ours that have started, say, their own businesses and have taken risks. And if you listen to the naysayers too much, we had an episode, our red carpet edition was our last episode. And so I'm going to take a lesson from that and just say, you got to remember, you're the only one who can really identify what makes you happy. And right, Michelle, when we start trying to change our lives and rediscover our passions, sometimes our family and friends can be sort of that stumbling block because they're trying to protect us maybe from taking a risk that sounds too scary. But remember, sometimes helping can be hurting. So if you really just think about what brings you joy and happiness, and sure, listen to constructive criticism, but again, just keep in mind that sometimes people will give you advice only because they're trying to help, they're trying to protect you. As long as you're not resentful and take it out on them, and remember what brings you inner joy, right, Michelle? There's no way you're not going to be able to reignite those passions and really start incorporating them in your life.
That's absolutely correct. Could not have said it any better myself.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, you guys, I want to remind you that you can find our episodes, not just of this episode, but of all of our episodes on Facebook, Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel with Dr. Dawn Shop Talk, so be sure to check that out. Also, remember that we do continue, even though it's we're premiering the videos so that we can kind of pre-record some of that. We still want to be able to get your comments as the show airs. So the show is going to continue to air each and every Monday at 12 noon. So just because we're premiering it does not mean that we would not be available to get your comments and be able to answer any questions that you might have as well. Even if it takes us a minute, just keep that in mind. So definitely want to let our audience know about that. Now, I did mention about next week's episode. You guys know I love giving you a sneak peek. So next week's episode, I'm entitling, Let Your Work Ethic Be Your Resume. You guys, this one I'm very excited to announce. I'm actually going to co-host that episode with somebody in my family who I think has an amazing work ethic, and that's my younger brother, Emilio Paul Torado. He's also an actor, has been in the entertainment business for many years. He's a comedian. And so that kind of also ties back to the red carpet edition that Michelle and I did a couple of weeks ago. So really, really excited about that. So that's going to be next week's episode. Now, as we start to wrap up, I also wanted to make an announcement. You guys know I brag all the time about my wonderful co-host, Michelle, and that's because Michelle and I have worked together for a couple of months. As I say all the time, she has trained me really well to be able to do this show. So she and I have been talking about the fact that as we've continued to work together and want to work even on some other projects, we thought moving forward, it would be a really great idea for me to also continue to have some other co-hosts. So although Michelle is always going to be probably my favorite co-host, because she's you
better say that right now, at least.
That's right. I'm going to deny this part of the episode.
Yeah.
I thought I was your favorite, Dawn.
Yeah.
But in any case, so although Michelle won't be a regular co-host, obviously she will be back anytime we can make that work. So just wanted to announce that to our audience that we thought moving forward would be great to maybe have some other co-hosts that might be able to also speak about some of those topics and give us another perspective. Right, Michelle? What are your thoughts about that announcement? I know we've talked about it for a while.
I think it's a great idea. You have such wonderful content that anytime you can bring in another expert to speak to those topics, I think it's an even better, more vibrant discussion. So I'm excited to see who all your future guests and co-hosts are.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I appreciate that. It really just goes to show you guys, when you surround yourself with the right people, like Michelle and I working together for months, our passion and our enthusiasm for what each of us bring to the table and the work that we're doing really kind of was a springboard to making this decision, right? So I think it's just a great way to wrap up the show that we've been co-hosting together all these months. And of course, I've had some other guests from time to time as well. But I think this is actually a great example, you guys, of always being fresh with your ideas and your perspectives. Never be afraid to take risks, because if you get the privilege of working together with someone like we have, that, we've been friends, we've worked together. When you get the privilege to work with someone who you work so great with, it does inspire you to try to take other steps and to be able to do other things. So I feel very blessed. I mean, Michelle knows this, personally and professionally, to have worked with her and to consider her a dear friend. But by making this shift, it gives us too a chance, right, Michelle, to work on some other projects together, kind of frees us up to do that. But I think it's a great example of how you should never be afraid in your business or in your personal life to kind of change it up a little bit. So I think it's kind of a great lesson as we wrap up this episode about your passion rediscovery.
That's exactly right. And again, you have summed it up quite beautifully. And so I would just encourage anyone out there listening, if you've been on the fence about making a change that's just kind of maybe been in the back of your mind, or you feel like perhaps you've lost a little bit of your passion, we really hope and pray that we've encouraged you just to, come on, just pull up your bootstraps, so to speak, and try it out. You never know what's just ahead.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Michelle. All right, you guys, I think that's a great way to wrap up today's episode. On behalf of Michelle and myself, remember, we always want you to have a great rest of your Monday, a terrific rest of your week. We hope you stay safe out there. And don't forget, each and every Monday, you can catch the Monday Huddle moving forward, same time, same place, airing at 12 noon. So hopefully you can catch us on your lunch hour. So you guys take care. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye, y'all.